Does it get any better than this? I don't think so. Teddy Covers representing Las Vegas, Nevada, joining us here on Friday morning. Teddy Covers, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. It's good to see Donnie. You know, Donnie and I did a show together for a long time. I don't see him anymore. So I get to see him for a minute or two on your show before I come on. So good to see him. How are you today? Did you enjoy the game last night?
No, I did not. And I fell asleep, and I just let go. You know what? If I need rest, look how perky I am right now. So I did not enjoy it at all. And but do we ever enjoy Thursday night football? I mean, and this is what we start with. We always complain about Thursday night football, and this is what we start with. I don't even want to spend too much time here on what we saw last night. I'd rather go into this huge NCAA football card, but we all want to know what your looks are for this NFL card. But I really want to talk Friday NCAA football, Saturday NCAA football. So let's just spend a couple minutes on NFL Sunday. We already know you got in with Cleveland at -2.5. You must be sitting back feeling very good about that. What is another look or a couple other looks? Or do you have any other looks on NFL? Or are you going to be focusing on NCAA football?
I played one other game in the NFL this weekekend besides Cleveland. I have Cleveland at 2.5 in my pocket, and I have San Francisco at +2 in my pocket. I may get involved in both sides. I might end up on Seattle before everything's said and done by Sunday, but at this point, I'm not on them yet. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but all we have in week one is overreactions for the betting markets for week two. And what you really want to see, what I'm looking for, is in terms of San Francisco, Cincinnati, I want an overreaction to a box score. And that's what we have here. The 49ers were lucky to beat Tampa because Jameis Winston threw 2 pick sixes, and Cincinnati outgained Seattle by close to 200 yards. You're like, wow, San Fran was lucky. Cincinnati played really good. Okay, that's fine. This is a pick-em type game. The winner of the game is going to cover the point spread more likely than not, unless it's a 1-point decision, which does happen, but not very often. But when you have a pick'em game and both teams are essentially dealing with misleading final scores to the last week that the betting markets don't respect, the betting markets saying, don't respect Seattle since he's really good. Oh, this San Fran team, that was a fraudulent win last week, and we're seeing all this money for towards the Bengals. I'm not buying it. San Fran's finding ways to win games. Cincy, they don't know how to win yet. They're supposed to win last week, and they haven't done it. Now they're being priced like they got to win again. I'm not buying it. Give me San Fran plus. To me, that was the one that was obvious to me on the card. But in a lot of these other games, Jimmy, I've got my bet-ons facing my bet-ons and my bet-against facing my bet-against. And that, to me, is something that, you can't force those plays. And I'm not going to go nuts. I cashed last night. I got the one play on Sunday. I got the one play in my pocket for Monday, and that might be all I have. Although I know you guys were talking about Dallas, Washington. I like that over. I wouldn't argue with anyone who wants to take the Cowboys. I wouldn't want to argue with anyone who wants to take the over. The one thing the Redskins did do last week that impressed me, that I didn't expect, Case Keenum was chucking the football around pretty well. And while we do like Dallas's defense, I wouldn't be surprised if the Redskins get in the 20s in that ballgame. If the Redskins get to 20, that game's getting up and over because Dallas is likely to get 4 touchdowns or more.
Yeah, and if Dallas gets the 4 touchdowns or more, we're right at that team total over spot. Back to this 49ers Bengals thing, and I know we've got questions already coming in, and feel free to start loading in your questions for Teddy in the NCAA football card. I'm the same as you. Like I'm watching Perfect Rotation saying this NFL card is very good, and a lot of people loving this NFL card. I'm very, very hesitant with this NFL card, and I'm not going to, Chris Smith saying I like San Francisco this week. And Dom Ricci got the over 44. If that was still a great work, Dom, getting ahead of that number. What do you think about the over in this 49ers-Bengals game at 46? It's actually 45.5 at Bookmaker and Heritage, but I find that look appealing. I don't trust the 49ers secondary. And it's not that the Bengals are going to exploit it. I like the 49ers as a side more than the total, and I think that I may be jumping on the 49ers as a side, especially after hearing that you like them as well. I love that they're in Youngstown all week, and I love that their pass rush is formidable this year. But what do you think about this over at 46?
I have really no strong opinion on it at all, Jimmy. When you talk about San Fran's defense, and maybe it's a little bit suspect, maybe it is, but we saw a defense that intercepted a total of 2 passes for the entire season last year, they notched 3 in the opener. Their secondary is better. All right. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, they've got not 1, but 2 guys who can go after the quarterback in Bosa and D Ford. And they had an impact last week. And I would expect they're going to have an impact this week as well. On the Cincinnati side of the equation, look, John Ross had a breakout game against Seattle. One would think that the 49ers will try to defend him and make somebody else beat them. And that could mean a lot if they can dunk for Cincy. So it's not a game where the over stands out to me.
Okay, nice, well put. Some worries about Bosa's sore ankle, but I expect him to be in the lineup and good to go. Ray Williamson, Bosa's injured again for the 49ers. I think that's just going to be something that we will be dealing with. All right, we have questions coming in on college football, and let's get to work on college football right now with Teddy Covers joining us. Let's start, and I know we've talked about these games already, but let's go over these 3 Friday night games right now, especially North Carolina, Wake Forest here. I was close to making a move on Wake Forest a couple times this week, and I have not yet done it. Wake Forest opening up at -3.5 at Pinnacle, now at -3. Although Bookmaker just moved it to 3.5. That just happened here. Total at 64.5. It's now 64.5, mostly across the board, but Pinnacle at 65. Let's start here. Teddy Covers, North Carolina, Wake Forest.
So the Demon Deacons haven't really, the game against Utah State, I don't have a big buy sign on Utah State this year. Certainly the game last week against Rice, Rice is going to be giving up a lot of points to a lot of teams. So from a who have they played, who's battle tested standpoint, North Carolina has the clear edge in that regard. But there's a lot that I like about this Demon Deacon squad, and certainly that comes in terms of their playmakers. This is a team that, we haven't known Wake Forest to be explosive offensively at any point in recent decades. And this year's team is legitimately explosive. They have playmakers at receiver. They got a quarterback who's chucking the football around. That's what I want out of my favorites. I want quick strike touchdowns. I don't want the team that has to go 12 plays, 72 yards, avoid all the penalties, avoid the negative plays. Grinding out drives. There's situations for those squads, but boy, I'd much rather have a team with a quick strike ability that can get the ball in the end zone when much easier than the 12-play, 72-yard drive. And Wake Forest has some of that. Now, on the North Carolina side of the equation, again, you have 2 non-road games against quality foes, and you come out on top in both of them. And North Carolina, they've done enough. I worry they're reading the press clippings a little bit. And I like the Tar Heels playmakers as well, but I'm not convinced that they're going to go and beat Wake tonight. So I haven't played it. I lean Wake. I lean over, but I didn't pull the trigger on either one. Not yet. Might, but haven't done it yet.
We've heard that there's weather issues coming in at 5 o'clock. So about an hour after this game or an hour before the game pops off. And so people are thinking, do we let the weather take us into the under? Have you been following the weather and how that will affect this spot?
Yeah, I got a chance of thunderstorms. And again, when you're trying to make your bets based on a weather forecast, all right, there's always going to be uncertainty, and the markets are always going to be moving right there with you. So you have to be ahead of the curve with this stuff. When you're ahead of the curve, there's a decent chance you're going to bet, all right, here come the thunderstorms, and the thunderstorms don't come, So in order to get the best of the number, you have to beat the market. And in order to beat the market, you got to make assumptions that may not be there when it comes to weather. So certainly, like when it comes to NFL and college, on Monday, I'm looking at the advanced weather forecast. And anywhere where it looks bad and the wind looks nasty and all that, that's when you want to bet your unders, is Monday, right when they come up, Tuesday morning, latest. And then as the week progresses, you can check your weather forecast and see, well, does this, and that's something I do every Monday is go through what totals do I want to hit under right off the bat? As the week progresses, if it turns out there is weather, well, that total is going to come down. Now you have a choice. You can hold it or you can work for the middle. If the total doesn't come down, well, sometimes it'll cost you the juice. If you want to bet it back the other way, sometimes you just hold it. But it gets you in position to be on the right side of these line moves before they happen. This one, obviously, if you're talking about it right now, there's the what I'm seeing is chance of thunderstorms. And chance of thunderstorms means there's a decent chance of a delay, which increases the uncertainty about the ball game. Different teams react different ways to delays, and you're not going to know that before kickoff necessarily. So you're just putting one more uncertainty into our already uncertain situation when you're talking about betting, we're making wagers.
Well put, well put. I've pretty much decided now after hearing all the analysis, Kyle Jack on North Carolina money line, I think I'm just going to stay off this first game, which is not something I would like to do, but I think I'm just going to stay off at this point. Now we go into Kansas, Boston College. We've seen this total open at 53, now down to 50.5 at Pinnacle. We also saw 21s here yesterday when we talked about this game, and I told you that our very own DJ Big Boss was on Kansas at plus 21. There's only a 21 left at Bovada, and Heritage has gone down to 20, so has Pinnacle. Kansas, Boston College. I mean, we know what Boston College wants to do, run through the heart of Kansas, and we know they're capable of that. Has anything changed? Are you making a move on Kansas, Boston College?
So what's interesting about these games is that we saw a stop point. This is the line got steamed up, stopped, and then got bought back. So the wise guy said 21's too much. And there may be Boston College is not built for blowouts, but I don't see Kansas marching up and down the field offensively. They can't move the ball against Coastal Carolina. You're not going to move the ball against BC. So I don't know that this isn't one of those games where you're like, all right, well, Boston College will be up 4 touchdowns, they'll fall asleep, and Kansas come through the back door. I don't see that. Then you say, what's going to happen if Boston College is running the football effectively and they're winning by margin and the starters come out? Boston College is still going to be able to run the football effectively with the backups and the third stringers on the field. And Kansas defense is still going to have problems when you take the starters out. If you're looking for one flaw, the Jayhawks, there are dozens. But, you want to talk lack of quality depth. Look at Kansas' second string. It's pretty ugly. Now, if the Jayhawks are hanging around, maybe they hang around in this game. But if things go south, it's just going to go south for this squad. There's not a lot of opportunities for Kansas to do things and make adjustments in game. The talent level isn't there. So I can only look at the Boston College side of the equation. And again, the markets have come to the point where they said 21's enough, 21's too much. So there is wise guy support for the dog at this price. Not my money. I'm not going to put my money on very bad college football teams. All they do is disappoint you. And you know how this game's going to play. BC's going to score a touchdown. Kansas is going to punt. BC score another touchdown. And you're like, you got a BC ticket, a Kansas ticket in your pocket. You're like, oh boy. I'm just hoping that they run it up the middle and they're running out the clock. And I don't want those games. I don't want that in my pocket. Where I'm just hoping that the other team takes it easy on us. Kansas is not a bettable squad for me. Not yet. It's very early still in the Les Miles era, although, well, they paid him enough money that he's going to have to stick around there for a while. But I'm not convinced that anyone is going to turn that ship around the way that, Mark Mangino had it a decade ago.
There's talk here about a couple looks, and one is Boston College first half. Also, Jarvis Wilson asking about the Kansas solo under 7 first half. Solo under 7 first half. Eddie Oler saying that Kansas solo under is a decent look. Mally Mal saying Kansas cannot score. What do you think about backing Boston College first half, or if we expect Boston College just to run, get up by a lot and take it easy, but continuing to run, is the under in play? So those two questions. Is the under in play, and what do you think? Or 3. Boston College first half, full game under, and Kansas first half team total under.
I wouldn't talk you out of any of those wagers. All 3 of them make sense to me. It's a matter of what's the number. And I want under 7.5 for the first, the 7's a little bit light. But first half under, BC under, first game under, BC first half, both make perfect sense to me.
So those are 3 looks. So that goes with a lot of the leans these guys are on, and that'd be BC first half. That would be under full game, and that would be Kansas team total under 7 first half. Okay, beautiful. Now we have questions coming in about this Washington State Houston spot. Washington State opens at -6.5. They're now at -10 at some books. Houston, Washington total opens up at 75. It's now down to 74 or 73.5. And we have our Jarvis Wilson saying, which spot here, where do I have it? Sorry, I have it copied and pasted somewhere. But he wants to know at which team total do you like going over the most here, Washington State or Houston? And then what are your overall thoughts on this game, side total?
So I did a bunch of reading on this game last night, was reading through the local papers, everything I could find. And I was trying to make a case for Houston, and I wasn't able to do it. Spavital wasn't confident. The quotes that I got out of him were like, yeah, well, we're going to see where we are at this stage of the process. The Cougs quarterback King didn't look comfortable last week. There was concerns about his health. There was concerns about his ability to throw the football downfield this week. I think that's why at least some of the money has come on Washington State, and why we've seen a little bit of under money here. But the other thing that Spavital was talking about is like, look, the Cougs have been running, or the Washington State Cougs have been running this offense for 8 years. You know, we've been running it for 8 months, and we're not as good at it as they are. So when your coach is coming out and saying that, you know, I mean, there's a lot of coach speak that you want to wade through. But when your coach is saying, well, we're going to see how good we are. Yeah, this is a real test for us. Sometimes those are, you know, you want to take that real and say, all right, you know, let's maybe not, you know, back this team as a home dog. We know what Washington State's going to do. You know, they run 10 plays. They run them all to perfection. It's plug and play with the quarterbacks. It's plug and play with the receivers. It's plug and play with the offensive line at this stage of the game. I don't like laying big prices with teams like Wazoo on the road after a pair of blowout wins at home against no one. I won't do that. You know, it's Washington State is not a team I have any interest in backing in this ball game because of that. From a value standpoint, of course, the number's gone on Washington State anyway. But the case I was trying to make for Houston, I couldn't make based on the info I was reading last night. So when all said and done, which of the two team totals would I rather have over? Well, the Houston coach wasn't confident. So I'd rather have Wazoo over in this one than Houston. But that's, you know, not anything that I bet myself.
And this total going from 75 down to 73.5, do you agree with that market movement?
Well, the markets are saying that Houston may not be able to trade points with them. That's what all this is about. You know, they're saying Washington State's going to get theirs. Houston isn't at the same place with the air raid or close, and their quarterback isn't 100%, and the markets are worried about the Cougs' ability to score.
Yeah, that makes
the Houston Cougs.
Yeah, Houston Cougs. Yeah, that makes
the Cougs versus Cougs messes me up. You know,
it's Coug on Coug, man.
Tigers
Sounds
play
like
the Tigers or whatever. You know, in college when LSU plays Auburn or whatever. It's one of those deals where Cougs versus Cougs.
Cougs versus Cougs. Eddie, you're liking the Washington State Cougars team total over. Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'm locking in right now. My second college football play of the week. I've been very passive so far. I'm on UCF -7.5. I'm taking Boston College first half -11 and -107. That is available at Bookmaker. Boston College first half -11, -107. That's my second look on the card. And there you have Friday's games. Let's move on to Saturday's games. And we have everybody, so many people in the chat right now talking about, and we're going to get to Marshall. We're going to get to your questions. I've been copying and pasting, but so many people talking about this Iowa State spot here. Big game. We've been talking about it for a little while. We've seen Iowa State opening at -1. Now Iowa's the favorite at -1.5. We've seen this total open at 44, go down to 42, a very low total on the board. A lot of talk in the chat. A lot of people liking Iowa State despite the market move, Teddy. How are you going to handle Iowa State?
Good game, right? Let's start with that. This is a game where you can make a pretty good case for both sides. Iowa, you want to know about one of these under the radar trends for Kirk Ferentz? I got 16-1-1. His last 18 tries is road chalk. Iowa covers numbers away from home. That's what they do, and they cover number as road favorites. In particular, they take care of business against the teams they're supposed to. All that being said, let's talk about the initial market move and why we're seeing Iowa money and now a buyback on Iowa State, because that got to 2.5, and now it's been bet right back down. Iowa, back-to-back blowout wins last week, dominant showing at home against Rutgers, where, did Rutgers get across midfield? I don't know, with 5 first downs. It was pretty ugly in that ballgame for the Scarlet Knights. Iowa did whatever they wanted. They controlled the game. They look good. Iowa State, on the other hand, tested in the opener against an FCS squad, a really good FCS squad, but markets don't necessarily react very well to teams that are challenged by non-Division I opponents. And Worth noting that Matt Campbell's a guy who's talked about it. He wants the bye after week 1. He says, this is my favorite scenario is play week 1, have the bye, correct everything, and come back out and surprise somebody. Well, that's exactly the situation for Iowa State this week. Talent-wise, I grade them out a little bit better than Iowa. My number says Iowa State should be the favorite here, but am I in a giant rush to step in front of Iowa as road chalk, given the strength that they have in that role? Stanley's pretty good. He's been better this year than he was last year, and that's a concern to me. Maybe my number on Iowa was a little bit low coming into the season because I didn't trust Stanley, and Stanley's looked good the first 2 games. So it's a tough game for me. I'll tell you what, I'm expecting a defensive scrum, but if I had to take a side, it would be Iowa State plus before Iowa minus. That's the way it would look.
Wow, I love that. Nutflush On says, one thing we can learn from Teddy is how many times Teddy Cover says, I won't have a bet on it. Learning how to limit your plays and take advantage of the spots, that makes sense, and that's something I need to hear very much. Okay, let's keep rolling. We've had a lot of guys on Air Force. A lot of people backing Air Force here. James Mendoza says, hey, everyone jumping into YouTube late. Jump on college football, Air Force tomorrow. And then we have Dom Ricci talking about the over in this Air Force Colorado game. This is another game we've talked quite a bit about this week, but here are 2 questions from guys that I love. Air Force Colorado, do we like the over? Can you back the road dog?
So I'll talk about the game in a minute, but I want to talk about what you mentioned just real briefly about the concept of passing games, making bets, how many bets I'm going to make in any given week. I'm going to have a fair few bets by Saturday in my card, bets that I've made early in the week, bets that I've made later in the week. But at the same time, I'm really not looking to bet 20, 30 games a week. No. And when I make a bet, my unit sizes tend to be fairly large. If you're making small bets, it's all okay. You can pepper the board. You're betting $20 here, $10 there, $50 there, whatever it is. But once you're getting to some real wager sizes, you have to limit yourself. Otherwise, a bad weekend can blow out your bankroll. So smaller bettors, you don't want to pepper the board, have fun. This is supposed to be fun for most people. If you're a professional, and that's not about fun, it's about earning your income. But if you're doing this recreationally, like many of you are, it's supposed to be fun, and you're supposed to make a couple of bucks, and you're allowed to put bets on. Just don't go nuts and putting big bets all over the board. But peppering the board with smaller wagers, I'm not going to chalk anyone out of that. That's part of the reason why you're in the chat box and watching the show right now. When it comes to Air Force and Colorado, I have such mixed feelings about this. The line is short. My powering number came a good notch or 2 higher, over a touchdown on the bus. But from a spot standpoint, again, it's hideous. Colorado coming off a huge game, and it's a big brother, little brother rivalry in state. And Colorado's got Arizona State on the road, their Pac-12 opener on deck. So it's your sandwich spot against a focused opponent that plays a funky little style, coming off a huge win. It's difficult for me to lay points with Colorado, even though my powering number says that's the way to go. It's not a buff spot. Although Air Force hasn't really been able to step up in class all that well, and that's my concern about that Falcons offense. Colorado's defense is not the defense that I trust, but Air Force's offense against the Power 5 schools, it just hasn't worked particularly well. So, and one thing Air Force is not going to do, they're not going to push pace in this ball game. So I wouldn't be looking at an over in the contest. It'd be under or pass for this bettor.
Would be under or pass. Under or pass. Beautiful. Let's move on to another spot. A lot of people talking about in the chat, and that's this Marshall, Ohio versus Marshall. Marshall opening up at -5. They're now at -4.5 at Pinnacle and Heritage, but there's a 5.5 in Intertops and 5s in other shops. This total opened up at 50.5, and it's been dropping. It's at 49.5 at Pinnacle, but 48.5 pretty much market. What do you think here? Can Marshall take care of business as a home favorite?
So Marshall wire to wire as a dog, as a dog in Boise. Now it's a change of roles. And here's Ohio U. What was the line last week? Ohio U against Pitt. Same place. Is Marshall as good as Pitt? I'm asking you, Jimmy. What do you think?
I need more time at this point.
The answer, my answer is no. My answer is Pitt's better than Marshall when all said and done. My priority number has Pitt a little bit higher. So from a pure value standpoint, look, everyone liked Solich's squad last week, and they went out, they didn't play well. Now everyone's, we don't want this squad anymore. Bobcats are feisty in these games. I don't think they go down without a fight. I would only look at the Ohio in this one. And again, remember that changing roles. They looked good as a big dog last week, but now they're laying. Not the same scenario. Lean Ohio.
We have an Ohio lean right now, so that might have a lot of our low baggers pumping their brakes there on Marshall. Now we have our guy, Prince of the City, who's been putting in so much great work in giving us tennis winners here in the chat. Also, he came down to our big trip in Miami. It was so much fun to hang out with. Prince of the City's been asking about this. I meant to get to this yesterday when he asked about it, and I did not get to it. It's the Kansas State, Mississippi State over. This total opened up at 48. It's up to 52. There's a 51.5 at 5 dimes and a 51.5 at Heritage. Kansas City State, Mississippi State over as the market spoken, and is it too late, or is there still a look even at 52 towards the over?
Okay, so the money's coming on the over because Mississippi State starting quarterback Tommy Stevens has been upgraded to probable. I made a 0-point adjustment for Tommy Stevens to his backup. 0. Okay, so the markets are making a big move because they think the quarterback's going to play and the starter's no better than the backup. To me, that's an overreaction. Last year, Kansas State got absolutely dominated at the line of scrimmage against Mississippi State. Their offense couldn't do a damn thing start to finish in that ballgame. It was embarrassing. And I had K-State in that game, and I remember how ugly it was. They were hopeless. They had no chance from the opening kick. So Mississippi State did graduate their defensive line. Maybe K-State has a better shot this time around to move the football. Maybe. I'm not betting the over in this one.
Not betting the over. There you go, Prince of the City. A lot of people liking Ohio in that spot. A lot of people liking it. Okay, let's keep rolling along here, but now let's let you take it. We've asked the questions from the chat. What are the edges and the angles? Where are the spots that are most appealing to you now on this card? We don't have a lot of time, so let's let you lead us into a game.
Yeah, exactly. Let me find my little sheet over here. Sorry, I'm looking with all the stuff that I got down. We haven't talked about Louisville, Western Kentucky. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, let's do it.
That's an interesting game because this is a Western Kentucky team that. How do I say this politely? They gave Louisville a battle last year, 3-point game. Of course, anyone that Louisville was able to hang with last year is telling you that what they actually were. But when you look, they're saying rivalry, and this is two teams that are fairly close. I don't think these two teams are fairly close at all. And when I look at Louisville right now, I'm saying bet on this is a squad that the markets aren't, they played 2 touchdowns worse than their talent level last year. The quarterback is showing signs and pass. He's made some plays, and yes, he still makes mistakes, but this guy can make plays. This is the offense that has a level of explosiveness. We talked about the quick strike touchdowns that I'm looking for out of my favorites. Louisville has all of that stuff. I think Western Kentucky, they gave him a battle last year. I don't see it happening 2 years in a row. Give me Louisville minus 10.5 or 11 right now. Another favorite I like is Michigan State, against Arizona State. And I know, revenge, nothing to do with the revenge. Well, a little bit to do with the revenge. Sparty led that game last year, 13-3 going to the fourth quarter, and they choked it away, and that happens on the road at times in hostile environments, especially when you're playing at, 1 o'clock in the morning on your body clocks like the kids from East Lansing were. Well, now the kids from Arizona State got to come back for a little payback. And Sparty's offense is working. We saw it last week where they moved the ball up and down the field against Western Michigan. And this time with a double-digit lead, I do not, D'Antonio has not been good in the double-digit favorites role. There's a little bit of negative market reaction, yet even with the track record. Sparty 0-4 with double-digit chalk last year against the spread. You see that line move towards Michigan State? That team's focused. They're ready. They're good. And I don't think Arizona State's Frost QB is going to enjoy his first collegiate road start. I like Michigan State minus the points and Louisville minus the points. That's two that we haven't talked about much for Saturday.
I like both looks. Should we be scared that we didn't get on this on Wednesday with the market move so heavily in those directions?
Well, all I can do is give you bets that I made. Should we be scared? Yeah. When you're not getting the best of the number, you should not make giant-sized wagers by any stretch of the imagination. But, you can still, there's still 14. There were 14s out there with Sparty, and I was okay laying 14 with Sparty. And there were still 10s out there with Louisville. And you can still find a 10 with Louisville. I have no problem at those two numbers, 10 and 14.
We keep seeing this number for the Florida-Kentucky total drop. Not huge, but consistently. Opened at 50. We now have 48s across the board, although Pinnacle's still hanging that 48.5. What's your feel now Friday after talking about this game for the week? Florida at -8, 8.5, or 9, and this total down to 48 for Florida-Kentucky, Teddy.
What? Everyone's worried about Kentucky's quarterback being hurt. And again, you have the knee-jerk reaction. That's what happens in college football because people don't have good personnel ratings, and they're like, oh, the quarterback's hurt. They can't move the football. Quarterback's a stiff. Wilson's not a stiff. He can run the football a little bit, but Wilson is not a good downfield thrower. Sawyer Smith may well throw the ball better than Wilson did, but the markets are saying, here's his quarterback. We don't trust him. He's the backup. I did not make any adjustment to my Kentucky power rating based on the quarterback injury this week, and the markets are. So we'll find out who's right. But the markets are betting under because they don't trust Kentucky's QB, and they're betting Florida because they don't trust Kentucky's QB. I don't trust the Gators, not in this price range, and not against a team that physically manhandled them at the line of scrimmage last year, took them to the wire the year before, was 28-27 the year before. For the last 5 meetings between these two teams, there was a triple overtime game. There was 14-9 that came down to the wire. There's only one game that's been decided by more than a touchdown in the last 5 years between Florida and Kentucky, and I'm not sold on Florida. So I like the home dog, but the total wise, I wouldn't. There's been under money. It's not my money.
Very, very interesting. When football season starts rolling, it's difficult to go back to baseball because this is so exciting. Eddie Euler, we got to put a bow on this show, but Eddie Euler puts so much energy into our chat, and he says, can you ask Teddy about Oklahoma and Oklahoma State overs, and we will do that for you, Eddie Euler, before we put a bow on this. So we'll start with State. Oklahoma State going to Tulsa, total at 65, opener now at 64 and a half. Pinnacle still hanging at 65, and there's 13 and a half, 14 and 14 and a halves with Oklahoma State favored. First off, for Eddie, what do you think of this over, and do you have a look on the side?
So this is a sharp score divide game. The pros are on Tulsa, the Joes are on Oklahoma State. So not that the pros win them all, but that's something that people like to know. And there's a handful of sharp score divide. The Lions and the Chargers this week are a sharp score divide game in the NFL. This is a clear one in the college ranks. When it comes to the total, Tulsa is not an over team. All right. Tulsa has multiple defenders that are going to be playing on Sundays and a pretty pedestrian offense. So I know what Oklahoma State wants to do. And if Oklahoma State, I think there's some correlation here between, there's not that much though, because Tulsa's not getting a 30 in this game. You know what I mean? So if they're going to cover, it has to be a relatively low scoring game. Tulsa correlates with under at least a little bit. I don't know that Okie State correlates with over because Tulsa, it could be one of those, 55-7 jobs if Okie State runs them out. But I'm not excited about this over because I like that Tulsa defense. They've impressed me twice already in 2 games. It seems like Tampa Bay's defense last night. No one's talking about it. And maybe the game week 1 was a fraud. And then, look at the Bucs defense last night. They won the game. They dominated the line of scrimmage. And Tulsa's defense is an underrated unit right now. So I would only look at to support that unit in the betting markets, which means look under, look Tulsa.
Yeah, I like Tulsa at home here. 14 points is a lot against them, and I like hearing that. And then the other spot that Eddie asked about is the Oklahoma UCLA. This will be our last game here on the show. This total high, 73. It's come down a point at most shops, a half point at bookmaker, a point everywhere else. And Oklahoma keeps moving. The spread keeps moving in their direction. Open at 21. Now we have 23.5s. And even a 24.5 of Bovada, but we know how they handle things. Teddy, last game on this card, Oklahoma, UCLA.
From a betting standpoint, this one's really hard. I'll be flat out. I'm not betting this game. Oklahoma could run them out of the gym, and they could. I mean, when you look at UCLA's recruiting, it's way down from a speed and talent and NFL prospect standpoint. I'm not convinced that UCLA can hang on the same field with Oklahoma. That being said, after facing Cincinnati and San Diego State, Bruins have faced two good defenses. Oklahoma's not going to be any better than what they've already seen. Can the quarterback avoid the mistakes? And that hasn't happened yet for UCLA. McLeod Thompson's had his rough start to the season, and Kelly doesn't have a lot of options. And again, recruiting-wise, I started really looking at UCLA recruit. The recruiting classes haven't been good the last couple of years. Kelly's not bringing them in the way that he did at Oregon. So I've got my concerns, and Oklahoma's not going to stop punching. It feels like UCLA should have a puncher's chance to hang around in this game, maybe for a while. I'm not getting there. From a total standpoint, I don't know if UCLA can score. Maybe Oklahoma team totals your bet. But I'm not, I don't trust the Bruins. Right now, I don't trust the Bruins to do anything. So it's hard for me to bet an over in a game where I don't trust the offense to move the football.
Yeah, I agree. And Raven in the Desert thinking that Oklahoma covers, Oklahoma State doesn't. And he also is giving us a final score for that game, Oklahoma 50, UCLA 17. If UCLA can't score, then how does it get to 72? I find that under quite appealing.